Coach is not what it used to be. Coach caved to pressure. Coach sold out. Sound familiar? I've heard a lot of complaints over the last few years about Coach's handbag designs and their ad campaigns. But I'm not talking about Coach today. I'm talking about Coach decades ago, when people used to say the same thing about them. However you want to say it, the classic all-leather Coach designs, what we tend to call vintage Coach, they are no more. And today I'll walk you through how that happened. This is part of my ongoing Thursday video series about Coach. Currently we are on the second of 4 videos about Coaches for designers. Except for the time period I'm talking about today, which is 1975 to 1995, I haven't been able to find any information on any designers that they had. It's very clear they did have designers during those years because they released so many new things. But for some reason I just can't find anything about them. So what I've done to learn more about this, what I call the unknown designer era of Coach, is I've explored the Coach catalogs in search of clues that tell a story. And oh, what a story I have found. My catalogs from this time period are not a complete set. They're a collection of PDFs that I'll have linked below that someone else scanned in years ago, and huge thank yous to that person. I have no idea who they are either. Since it's not a complete set, I'm sure I'm missing information, but I'm doing my best to share what I do know with you. And what I'll share today is how the handbag designs changed over those 20 years, particularly some of the new bags and the new collections that were released. And I will show you examples from my personal collection. And if I don't have any from a certain collection, then I will share images from the catalog so you have an idea of what they were doing. I'll also talk about notable changes to the catalogs themselves, which became major marketing tools for Coach. And I'll share how some of their marketing shifted, which reflects shifts in their company. And all of this tells the story of major transitions that were happening at Coach over these 20 years. How they held on to the past as long as they could, they resisted change as long as they could, before finally caving to the pressure, or some would say selling out, to meet the new demands of their time. And welcome, I'm Autumn Beckman. I'm here to help you live your most luxurious life within your budget. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my new videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, which are all about Coach right now, and Saturdays where I do unboxings. And you'll be able to see my daily community posts where I post the best sales of the day and, of course, fabulous handbags. Also, don't miss my website. It'll be linked below, autumnbeckman.com. And that's where you can find things that I have designed to help you organize and curate a purposeful collection of your most treasured things, including the My Handbag Collection Organizer. This is the front and back of the item tracker page. This is the heart of the organizer, where you can record everything you would ever want to know about your handbags and small goods. In last Thursday's video, we talked about Coach's very first handbag designer, Bonnie Cashin. If you haven't seen that yet, I would encourage you to go back and watch it after this video, because Bonnie Cashin was absolutely crucial to developing that vintage Coach look that so many of us know and love, and which continued after her departure. She left in 1974, so our story today starts in 1975. Some of what I'll do in today's video is read to you excerpts from the Coach catalog. So Coach telling their own story in their own words. From the 1975 fall catalog, they say most leathers today are heavily coated with paints and pigments that give them a uniform color and an almost blemish-free surface. That's what we know today. Most of the handbags today, even at Coach, we'll get to this, are heavily coated with paints and plastics, and they have textures like pebbled leather stamped into them. Continuing, our leather is different. The scars, scratches, veins, and wrinkles have deliberately not been covered over with paint. Instead, far more interesting gradations of color have been achieved with a clear aniline dye that enhances rather than conceals these beautiful natural markings. Coach bags are soft and unconstructed. They say they can be hugged, squeezed, and squashed. They can be worn every day, and with normal abuse, the leather will gradually darken, ultimately taking on a most pleasing overall burnished appearance. So you know where Coach is coming from at this point, 1975, in terms of their handbag designs. I'll show you a few that are included in this 1975 catalog. There is the courier pouch, the duffel sack, though this color, forest green, had not yet been released. The classic pouch, this one is in navy. The crescent, this is actually an updated version of the crescent called the saddle bag, but it looks identical except the crescent had a vertical seam right here, and the saddlebag has a back pocket, whereas the crescent didn't. The convertible clutch, and the basic bag, which at this time was called the zippered clutch. At this point, the catalogs themselves were all in black and white. They also had little mini catalogs, which were very small, with just one bag on each page. And then they had some that were a little larger with 4 bags on a spread. So 2 on each page. In 1976, a few of the photos in the catalog started including people, but they were close-ups of the bag as they were worn on people. So you didn't see faces, you didn't see full bodies. And in one of the 1976 catalogs, Miles Kahn, he and his wife Lillian owned Coach at this time. He said, "We have added a few new sizes and shapes, but the old favorites are still there and the look is unchanged." The Stewardess was one of the new bags that year. I don't have a catalog from 1977. The 78 and 79 catalogs were basically the same. I don't have one from 1980. But when we get to 1981, the catalog appears to be bigger now. And previously, the catalog had the image of the bag, along with the name of the bag and the style number. But now, each bag has a description, as well as a list of colors that it's available in. They'd all had measurements up until this point, too. Based on what Coach says in their catalogs about their bag and about their company, we can gather information about a few things that were going on in the handbag world at that time. So in what I read to you a minute ago from the 75 catalog, you could tell that Coach was differentiating themselves from competitors by comparing the leather. Theirs was this high quality, it's not painted, it's not coated, it's natural textures, as compared to those others which aren't as good as ours. And for a number of years, every Coach catalog, starting around 1981, had a page or 2 of text explaining how Coach differentiates itself. I'll read some of that to you here. Coach bags are basic unlined leather bags that are very well made out of good leather. They will never go out of style. That's something we see them say over and over again, and under normal conditions can be worn and enjoyed for many years. They also make a point of talking about the company. Coach bags are made by a small, privately held company that's been making leather bags, belts, and billfolds since 1941. It's a family-owned business deeply committed to the excellence of its products and the quality of its service. Coach bags are virtually indestructible. There are no synthetic lining materials to tear, pull out, or come apart. The buckles are cast in solid brass. The seams are sewn with 3-ply high-tenacity nylon, double-stitched where necessary, and can withstand over 100 pounds of stress. And Coach bags are one of a kind, each one identified at the factory with its own registration number, stamped right into the leather. So they want you to know their quality and craftsmanship is superior to competitors, and that they are a family-owned business who really cares about the quality. To reiterate this, in 1981, and I'm missing the 1980 catalog, so it may have happened then, but the first time I see this is in the 1981 catalog. They released a book called The Factory, a portrait of a leather goods factory in downtown New York City. You could purchase this from Coach for $2, and it's a black and white book with photos from their factory of their workers creating Coach bags. And it has a little bit of text to explaining what's going on. This book is hard to find now. I picked mine up a few years ago. If you're interested in me doing a flip through so you can see what all is in here as a bonus video, let me know in the comment section below, please. And at this point, they started using some photos from the factory book within their catalogs to again reinforce the idea of Coach making their bags by hand and how that equates to superior quality. The catalogs were still black and white at this point, but they did have one page that had the Coach hang tags in the different colors that were available. You could also order a set of hang tags so you'd have color samples, because of course the color's not always accurate in the printed version. Those are extremely difficult to find on the Preloved market these days. When I have seen them, I've sometimes seen them for over $1,000. But there is a seller on Etsy who will now take damaged vintage Coach bags and make hang tags out of them. And you can buy a set of those in different colors from her. So I will have that linked below. Very cool thing that she does. One of the bags that I hadn't seen before that I now see in the 1981 catalog is the Dinky, which is a Coach classic. I don't have an original vintage one, but I do have this remake, which is covered in leather sequins. This catalog is also the first where I saw a briefcase. Now those took off, and business accessories, particularly briefcases, became a huge market for Coach. As I've mentioned in previous videos, Coach has a tendency to use the same name for different bags or to change the name of the same bag on you, which can make it very difficult and a bit frustrating if you're trying to make sense of all this information. So I would note that this, 1981, is the year that they changed the zippered clutch to the basic bag and the classic pouch to the classic shoulder bag. The 1982 catalogs have all the same bags basically. They do introduce a few new small goods. And along those lines, they have an interesting note about something they call bag fittings. And I had never heard this term, so see if you can figure out what it means. I'm sure you can. They say, we get letters every day asking why we don't make a wallet, a coin purse, a key case, an eyeglass case, or a cosmetic case. The fact is, we do. For several years now, we've been producing a small collection of these classic bag fittings to accessorize our bags. But because we make them in such limited numbers, they're not always readily available in the stores. Our bag fittings are, of course, all made out of the same glove-tanned cowhide that we use to make our bags and belts. In order to make these small pieces out of leather, it's necessary to split it down to a lighter weight. This is accomplished by running each part through a splitting operation that reduces it to the desired thickness, and in the process renders it as soft and supple as a piece of fine calfskin. Except for the two makeup kits, which are lined with a treated cotton ticking that resists spills, every piece is fully lined in leather. The zippers and snap fasteners are solid brass. And they say a few more things, but you get the gist. And just as their bag fittings, we now call them small leather goods, are in high demand and short supply, so are their handbags at this time. In previous videos, I've talked about how Coach is still operating out of their one New York City factory, the original factory where they've been since 1941. They had become very, very popular at this point. So many people wanted Coach bags. But when you have one factory, even when you expand to something like 4 floors at that time, they simply did not have enough space to meet that demand. And they address that in some of their catalogs. That's another reason why they push that idea of them being a small family-owned business that really cares about quality and showing you the factory. Sure, it increases demand, but it also increases customer understanding of why supply is limited. In fact, in one of their 1983 catalogs, they say, in the face of pressures placed on us by the great demand for our products, we have chosen to remain a small, privately held company. That will soon change. We'll get to that in a minute. Also in 1983, they started selling replacement straps for their bags. Thought that was a fun note. In 1984, there's a section in their spring catalog talking about water buffalo leather, which is what they use for their small leather goods. I'm not sure if they just started using that in 1984 or if they just started educating people about it, marketing about it. But that's where I first see it mentioned in a catalog. And then in 1985, just 2 years after that statement I just read about them choosing to remain a small family-owned company, Lillian and Miles Kahn sell Coach to Sara Lee, the Cheesecake Company. But the catalogs for 1985 still remain basically the same products. There is something I found very interesting. So a lot of you watching were alive in 1985, so you can think back and remember. In this catalog, there's an acknowledgement that there are fake Coach bags out there. People are faking this brand because they're so popular. So they say there has in recent years been a proliferation of imitation Coach tags hanging from imitation Coach bags. There's a simple way to be sure you're not confused or deceived by these imitations. Just remember, it's not a Coach tag unless it has our name on it, and it's not a Coach bag unless it has our tag on it. And on the last page of this catalog, they include a photograph from the factory book of someone hand stamping the registration number to remind customers that authentic Coach bags also have registration numbers inside. Not that those weren't faked either, though. The 1986 catalogs are where you start to see Sara Lee's imprint on the new Coach. The catalogs are now all in color because they're owned by Sara Lee and they have a lot more money and they can afford that. The first page of the catalog features brand new handbag designs. The Embassy briefcase, the Madison satchel, the mini pouch, and the saddlery bag. There are also a few more bags introduced in this catalog for the first time, including the Rambler. The text about Coach being a family-owned company has now been removed and replaced with, "We have been making the finest leather products for over 40 years." And this is where we start seeing the Coach bags change. As of 1986, as soon as Sara Lee comes in and dips their fingers in everything, they start departing from the traditional Coach designs. The first thing they introduce is twill bags. They say some of our most popular styles are now available in khaki cotton twill, trimmed in tabac glove-tanned cowhide. The durable 2-ply industrial weight cotton is treated to resist stains. That was in their spring catalog. Their summer catalog puts an emphasis again on the production of the bags and how they're handmade. They have short sections across several pages in the catalog that talk about the 5 stages of Coach handbag production. And those are illustrated with photos from the factory book. Those 5 stages are cutting, preparing, assembling, sewing, and finishing. In the fall 1986 catalog, they introduce a leather care lotion for $5. They also introduce about half a dozen new handbags, including the pocket purse. Their 1986 winter catalog has a letter from Coach's president at the time, Lou Frankfurt. He acknowledges that this is now their 45th anniversary, but he also says that he believes there is still a market for classic leather accessories, and that they will try very hard to maintain the same standards of excellence. He also mentions there are now over 250 employees and that the company has undergone a lot of changes. Yes, that's because they're now part of a conglomerate. And the president of Coach stating all this in a catalog that thousands of their customers see. I'm speculating here, but what that indicates to me is that they're starting to get complaints about their quality and that they're starting to lose customers to other brands because they haven't shifted from these classic leather accessories. They've had the same style for all their bags for over 10 years now. And in 1986, handbags had become more than a practical thing. They were fashion statements. Branding was also becoming important, so they were becoming status symbols. So Coach under Sara Lee starts making moves to hold on to customers and to attract new ones. This year they start releasing new product lines such as gloves and organizers. This is a planner cover that's from a later year with embossed cowhide, but they were making these out of water buffalo at the time. Another expansion of their business line. In 1987, another indication that they were receiving complaints, their catalog reads, "You can get a refund if not satisfied with anything you order." And at this point, they are releasing new bags very regularly, often several in each new catalog. In spring of 87, they introduced the City bag. Then in summer of 87, this is where things really start to change with Coach handbags. They're responding to the market. They're responding to the fact that people want something different. So they release an entirely new collection called the Lightweight Collection. They describe this as soft, supple leather developed by Coach, full-grain, natural glove-tanned cowhide, and that the new pouch-like shapes are designed to take full advantage of the leather's light, soft, supple qualities. And it still has solid brass hardware, has outside seam bindings, and handy inner pockets. They've also added lighter colors, because many of the colors up until then had been pretty dark. This was about as light as you could get with Coach until now. In the fall catalog, they say the Lightweight Collection received an enthusiastic response, and that encouraged them to keep going. Then we jump ahead to the 1988 holiday catalog. I don't have any other catalogs from '88. The cover of the catalog is now in full color, as with the rest of the catalog. And products are starting to be staged in groupings instead of an individual picture of each bag. Sometimes they include accessories, so a bag and one of their small goods. And sometimes they'll have a model posing with the bag. They also start marketing their items now in the holiday catalogs as gifts. And of course, they introduced many new bags, including the Swagger. In 1989, they introduced silk scarves. This was a totally new thing for them, and it says they were woven and hand-screened by master artisans in Como, Italy, and that the edges are rolled and hemmed by hand. And at this point, by the way, they had extended their factory. So they had the New York factory, but they also now had a factory near Miami, and that's where that lightweights collection was made. In '89, they introduced another new collection called the Spectator Collection. This has tobacco trim on contrasting colored leather. So their bags are no longer tonal now. They're no longer all one color. And to me, these bags have always looked an awful lot like Dooney & Bourke. Do you think that's a coincidence? Along with the Spectator Collection, they also introduced the Continental Collection. It is new thing after new thing at this point in Coach history. They are trying their best to appeal to more and more people and draw in more customers. The Court bag was part of the Continental Collection. It was introduced in 1989. This color was not. This is olive. It came later. But an interesting thing about the Continental Collection is that they merged it into the Classics Collection, which is what they call all the bags that they made before they started introducing new things like twill and lightweight. And they were still releasing new designs as part of the Classic Collection. By the time the holiday season of 1989 rolls around, they have introduced gift certificates, and the images in the catalogs now include models' full body, faces, and they are in what appear to be natural environments, so the customer viewing the catalog can picture themselves and what their life would be like if they had a Coach bag or opening one as a Christmas gift. We're entering the last 5 years of this era now. 1990, their catalog says they started the company 50 years ago. That's not true because it was started in 1941, so it was 49 years at this point. And it does say that all bags are still handmade. They're still introducing lots of new bags in the Classics Collection, the Lightweight Collection, and in the Spectator Collection, they've taken bags like the Court and turned them into Spectator bags, where they have the two-tone look. Their 1990 winter catalog is the first that has a model on the cover, at least of the catalogs that I have. And of course, we see more bags introduced. They also introduced new business accessories like 3-ring binders and desk accessories, pencil cups, things like that. In 1991, they introduced the first bag that I have seen in the catalogs that has a dowel on the top. And their catalog, this is the 1991 holiday catalog. It says logo treatments and trendiness have no place in our philosophy of classical design. That is a bit laughable knowing what we know about Coach today. This collection achieves the understated elegance that has been at the heart of our concept since 1941. They're talking about the Classics Collection. Even the leather itself, supple, durable, natural cowhide, is a classic. And they introduce more and more bags in each of those collections, the Classic, the Spectator, and the Lightweight. They also introduced a new men's travel collection. In 1992, we see a big shift in the leather that Coach uses. They introduced the Sheridan collection, and they describe it as a stain and scratch-resistant, lightweight, pebble-textured leather that maintains a new appearance over time. It appears to be the first coated leather they've done, unless the leather from the Spectator line is also coated. I don't have a bag from there. I've never seen one in person, so I'm not sure. If you know, I'm sure there's someone out there who does. Let me know in the comments. These bags also have a jacquard lining, and it seems to be the first time they've done that in a handbag. They have a bridal leather trim and domed leather tabs with brass hardware, and it combines softness and durability. They also introduced another new collection called the Dakota Collection. This one did not last long. It says it's scratch, stain, and weather-resistant, rugged, box-grain textured cowhide with a contrast bridal leather trim, brass hardware, and magnetic closures. To me, this really looks like and sounds like they're competing with Dooney & Bourke's all-weather leather. They also introduced the Carriage Classics Collection. This didn't last beyond 1992, from what I can tell from the catalogs. This one, they say Coach updates its Classics collection with the addition of carriage handbags and accessories, fresh silhouettes and 2 exclusive colors, sage and golden tan. That's something they started doing. This is the first time I've seen them mention it. But as they'd introduce a new collection or certain new bags from the collection, they would also introduce a few new colors that were exclusive to that line. So in this case, sage and golden tan bring excitement to the season. Distinctive square patches and a tab punctuated by a solid brass stud characterize carriage. A concealed magnetic closure beneath the tab makes for easy use and clean design. So they have now shifted from the turn lock to using other types of closures, and this may be the first time they did a magnetic closure, which is a lot of what they do today. They also introduced the Camden Classics collection. Again, it didn't last beyond the year. It says our glove tan leather appears almost sculpted rather than sewn, and it has a touch lock, or what we would call a push lock, brass closure. One of the new classics bags they released that year was the Devon. This one's in bottle green. They also introduced the West End lightweight collection and travel weave luggage. So they now have a luggage, but it's not leather. It's trimmed in leather, but the body of it is a water-resistant textile. And in their holiday catalog, they started something that they would continue for at least a few years called limited editions. And this is where they re-release old designs that people have asked for, but they've been discontinued. And when you look at the catalog, in front of the name, like the Stewardess is one that they re-released, it'll say Retro Stewardess. And I found this very interesting and eye-opening because I've seen stewardesses that are later than this. Again, this is 1992. I've seen them as late as 2002. So I thought that they made them the whole time. Apparently not. When they did these limited edition releases in the holiday season, they released about 5 or 6 bags. And this year they did the saddle pouch in the large size, the Stewardess, the Pony Express, the riding bag in the small size, the marketing tote, and the classic shoulder bag. And in this catalog they also released a few more accessories for the holidays, like pencil cases, picture frames, and new eyeglass cases. In 1993, they introduced the Manhattan Lightweights collection, which they called sleek and minimal with ornamentation spared. And they introduced the Classic Brights collection. So these were bags in the style of the classics, but modernized a bit with some of their shapes, and they had brighter colors. These stuck around for a while and were incorporated into the classics line. They also introduced the Willis in 1993, a very popular bag today. And they introduced the Madison collection, which is a very special collection. I have one example. This is the Carlisle bag. And I will do a video talking about this line in more detail. As I think you can tell, it's a coated textured leather. It has an elongated turn lock, and it's lined in a textile. And what's really special about this Madison line, there were other Madison lines, but this one, this collection was made in Italy, and it stuck around for a while. 1993 was also the year that Coach did their American Legacy campaign. I mentioned this in a previous video about the history of Coach, and this is where they found descendants of legendary Americans, and they used them in advertising. And you'll see that in the 1993 fall catalog, such as this descendant of Alexander Graham Bell. I think I'd like to do another video just on that. Let me know if you're interested. I think it's super interesting, especially because there's a connection the following year that we're about to talk about. In their holiday limited edition collection, they released, again, the classic shoulder pouch and the Stewardess, as well as the Collegiate, the Swagger, and the Slim Satchel Compact. Meanwhile, by the way, they're also doing all the same things that I've just mentioned: the classics, the business, the travel, the Madison, the Sheridan, the Soho. All those lines are still in production. In '94, connected to the American Legacy campaign, they introduced an American Legacy series. And one of the things that I have been wondering as I've been doing all this Coach research is I'll sometimes see like a duffel bag called Helen's Legacy or another bag called Janice's Legacy. And I've always wondered, who are Helen and Janice? And I assumed they were people related to the Coach company, part of the family or workers or something like that. No. I finally learned in this catalog who they are. So it says about the American Legacy series that it's a celebration of history, our own and our customers. In our case, the entire collection is inspired by one bag, the duffel sack, which we introduced in 1973 and have offered ever since. In the case of our customers, these bags derive their names from people who sent us wonderful stories about their ancestors. So I'm guessing that as part of the American Legacy campaign, they asked customers to send them stories about their families, And then what they've done here is take some of their bags and name them after those customers. So they have the Janice Riccardi de Santo Legacy bag. We just call this the Janice's Legacy bag now. So Janice, there are 4 bags. I'm going to read very short descriptions about either one because I think they're interesting. So Janice's grandparents, Salvatore and Carletta Riccardi, survived the Depression while raising a family of 6, never losing faith in family or community. The second bag is the Faith Oliver Legronde Legacy bag. Faith's great-great-great-grandfather, George Oliver, settled in Tennessee in the 1700s. Today, Faith's family still lives on his original farm. Helen Berg's Legacy bag, later Helen's Legacy. Helen's parents, Rudolph and Helena Duraca, came to America in the 1920s. Their names are inscribed on the Immigrant Wall of Honor at Ellis Island. And Lula Smith's Legacy bag, later called Lula's Legacy. Lula's grandfather, Fred E. Johnson, was born in the late 1800s. His memory lives on in Alabama, where he helped build the Bankhead Tunnel. I just think that's fascinating. In this year, 1994, Coach also introduced the Sonoma collection. They call this soft, relaxed silhouettes in rich, velvety nubuck. Another new leather for them. Each style holds its shape, yet drapes beautifully against the body. Sonoma leather is specially treated, rendering it weather and stain resistant. The overall impression is easy elegance, fresh style, and colors that reflect the Southwest. And the limited edition bags from this year were the small zippered pouch, the saddle pouch, the carrier bag, the shoulder pouch in the small size, the Madison satchel, and the stewardess. And I would also note that they described the Sheridan line in this catalog as all-weather texture, very similar to Dooney & Bourke all-weather leather. Oh, and they started offering free shipping and handling. In 1985, they introduced the Casino bag, as well as the Manor bag. In their autumn catalog alone, they introduced 45 new bags and small goods. In their holiday limited edition collection, they released the saddle pouch, the Chelsea bag, the stewardess, the cosmetic case, the classic hobo, and the Monterey. And in their holiday catalog, in preparation for the following summer's Olympic Games, they introduced their 1996 Olympic Games collection. This is the first time I've seen them do licensing with another brand. The games were being held in Atlanta, Georgia that year. So it does make sense that they would do this when the games are in America. So hopefully you can see across the catalogs for these 20 years how Coach went from their classic vintage handbags. They saw some turbulence and they responded once they had the resources, being owned by Sara Lee, to how the market was shifting. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people did not. And those people were probably especially unhappy with what was about to come next. So stay tuned for next week's video where we talk about lead designer Reed Krakoff's time at Coach and how we saw the Coach designs change dramatically and we see them skyrocket and then plummet. And the week after that, we'll talk about current designer Stuart Vevers and how he brought Coach back to life. I hope you're enjoying these. I know they can be a bit tedious at times because I'm going through fact after fact, but I do think it's fascinating to those of us who are really interested in doing these deep dives into Coach. There's so much to learn. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.